The sun was sinking low across the horizon, painting the wide Texas sky in shades of amber, fire, and fading blue. Dust curled up from the dirt road as the wind whispered through the dry grass fields. A red pickup sat stranded near a crooked fence, hood lifted, and beside it stood Claire Monroe, her hair catching the light, her denim shorts worn from work, and her red plaid shirt tied carelessly at the back. Sweat shone faintly on her forehead, though it was hard to tell if it came from the heat or the frustration gnawing at her. She wasn't the kind of woman who gave up easy, but today had tested her patience in ways she hadn't expected. She gripped a wrench in one hand and glared at the stubborn engine as though sheer anger might force it to roar back to life. "Damn thing," she muttered under her breath, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. That's when she heard it, the slow, deliberate sound of boots on gravel, the quiet weight of a presence that didn't belong to the empty fields. She turned sharply. A man walked toward her, dust haloing around him like he'd stepped straight out of an old Western painting. His jeans were faded but clean, tucked into worn boots that had seen more roads than most folks dreamed of. His shirt was denim, sleeves rolled, and a wide-brimmed cowboy hat shadowed his face. But even under that brim, his eyes carried something dangerous, something heavy. She tightened her grip on the wrench instinctively. Truck broke down. His voice was low, calm, with a hint of gravel that suggested a man used to silence and long rides. She folded her arms, defensive. "What's it look like?" she shot back. He didn't flinch, didn't even smirk, just let his gaze move briefly over the engine and back to her face. "Looks like you're about one good turn from throwing that wrench across the field," he said. Claire hated the way her lips twitched, almost betraying a smile. He wasn't wrong. But she'd spent years proving she didn't need saving, not from men, not from the world, not from the damn engine of an old truck. "I can handle it," she said sharply. "Didn't say you couldn't." He stopped beside her, not too close, just enough that she could smell the faint scent of leather, dust, and something clean, soap maybe, or rain he hadn't seen in a while. He studied the truck for a moment before reaching forward. "Mind if I take a look?" She hesitated. Every instinct told her to say no. Yet something in the way he stood there, quiet, steady, unbothered by her sharp tone, made her pause. Reluctantly, she stepped aside. "Fine. Don't make it worse." He tipped his hat slightly, an almost ironic gesture, and bent over the engine. His hands moved with ease, not fumbling, not guessing. He knew what he was doing. Claire noticed the veins along his forearms, the calm patience in his touch. She hated that she noticed at all. "You're not from around here," she said finally, more a statement than a question. "Just passing through," he replied, voice steady as his fingers tightened the bolt. Something about the way he said it sounded final, like the end of a conversation. But Claire had never been one to leave things unsaid. "Passing through where?" "Town's 20 miles back. After that, it's just dirt and fences." He shrugged without looking up. "Sometimes dirt and fences are all a man needs." Her eyes narrowed. There was something strange about him. His clothes were plain, but his boots, well-made, expensive, though scuffed from wear. His belt buckle was silver, engraved, the kind ranchers passed down generations. And his hands, calloused, sure, but with a kind of discipline that didn't belong to a man drifting without purpose. Whoever he wasn't just some wanderer. Before she could push further, he straightened, wiping his hand along his jeans. "Try it now," he said. Claire frowned but climbed into the cab. She turned the key, and the engine roared alive as though it had been waiting for him all along. She blinked, half relieved, half annoyed. "Well," she muttered, hopping back out. "Guess you know a thing or two." His eyes met hers then, and for the first time she caught something flicker there, something old, something broken, but strong. He tipped his hat again. "Glad I could help." And then he turned, as if that was it, as if he could just walk away and vanish back into the dust. "Wait." The word escaped her before she could stop it. He turned his head slightly, not fully. "What's your name?" she asked. He paused, the air between them thick with tension. Finally, he said, "Jackson. Just Jackson." And with that, he walked away down the road, the sun sinking behind him until his silhouette melted into gold and shadow. Claire stood there, the engine running steady behind her, the wrench still clutched in her hand. Something told her that wasn't the last time she'd see him. That night, at the local bar where neon signs hummed and old country music twanged through dusty speakers, Claire overheard two ranch hands at the counter whispering. "Saw Hayes today," one muttered. "You mean Jackson Hayes," the other replied, voice low. "The man owns more land than half this damned state. Don't nobody cross him, don't nobody know him either." Claire froze. Hayes. Jackson Hayes. She thought back to the drifter who walked out of the sunset with nothing but quiet words and steady hands. She'd thought he was just a wanderer. Just another cowboy passing through. But she was wrong. Dead wrong. And in that moment, a chill ran through her, not fear, but something far more dangerous. Curiosity. The bar smelled of sawdust, whiskey, and secrets. Claire sat at a corner booth, pretending not to listen, but every word about Jackson Hayes cut sharp through the smoky air. She sipped her drink, eyes flicking toward the mirror behind the counter. From there, she saw him, sitting alone at the far end, head still low, a glass of bourbon untouched in his hand. He wasn't talking to anyone, wasn't looking for company. Just sitting, as though the world itself weighed too heavy on his shoulders. People around him kept their distance. It wasn't fear, exactly, it was respect mixed with something else. The kind of silence a man earned through stories no one dared to say aloud. Claire forced herself to look away, focusing on the condensation sliding down her glass. But her mind betrayed her, pulling her back to the memory of his hands fixing her truck, the calm certainty in his voice. A man who looked like a drifter, carried himself like a soldier, and apparently owned more land than anyone she knew. Why hide it? Why walk dusty roads like a wanderer when he could ride across his empire like a king? The bartender, a grizzled man with a permanent squint, leaned toward her. "Careful where you point those eyes, darlin'," he muttered, wiping down the counter. Claire arched a brow. "Excuse me." He nodded toward Jackson. "Men like him don't mix well with questions. He's been burned too many times. Don't matter how pretty the fire, he won't step close." Claire bristled. "I wasn't asking for advice." The bartender smirked. "No, but sometimes advice finds the ones who need it most." Before she could snap back, Jackson stood. The room shifted, subtle but real. He set a few bills on the bar, finished his bourbon in one long swallow, and walked toward the door. For the briefest second, his gaze flicked to her. Not a smile. Not an invitation. Just a glance that felt like it saw far more than she wanted to reveal. Then he was gone, boots fading against the wooden floor, the door creaking shut behind him. Claire exhaled, realizing she'd been holding her breath. Damn him. Damn his silence, his mystery, his refusal to be known. Most men tried too hard to impress her, flashing smiles and promises. But not him. He walked through her life like a shadow, leaving her more restless than before. The next morning, she was back at her ranch, the sun already high as she hauled hay into the barn. Her family's land wasn't big, but it was hers now, after her father passed. She worked it alone, stubbornly refusing to sell even when bigger ranchers circled like vultures. Sweat clung to her back, but she welcomed the burn, it reminded her she was alive, that she was enough. Still, her mind kept circling back to him. She didn't expect to see him again so soon. But as she carried a bucket of water toward the horses, a truck pulled up near the gate. Her eyes narrowed. It wasn't his. It was black, polished, with tinted windows. The kind of vehicle men used when they came with contracts and offers to buy. Sure enough, two men stepped out in suits too clean for country air. "Miss Monroe," one said with a practiced smile, "we represent an interested buyer for your land." Claire's jaw tightened. "Not selling." "We understand your hesitation," the other chimed in smoothly, "but the offer on the table is generous. More than fair." "Not selling," she repeated, sharper this time. The first man's smile didn't falter, but his eyes hardened. "Perhaps you'll reconsider. Land this size isn't worth the struggle for one person." Claire stepped closer, her chin lifted. "Then maybe it's not the land you want. Maybe it's the fact I won't bow to whoever's pulling your strings." The men exchanged a glance, then slid back into their truck, leaving dust and unspoken threats behind. Claire stood there, fists clenched, fury burning through her. Whoever wanted her land didn't care about fairness. And she wasn't about to roll over. That evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, she found him again. Jackson, leaning against a fence post at the far edge of her property, hat tipped low, as though he'd been waiting. She marched over, fire in her step. "You," she snapped. He didn't move. "Evenin'," he said simply. Her anger sharpened. "Don't evenin' me. You think you can just show up here like some ghost out of the dust? What do you want, Hayes?" For the first time, his jaw tightened. He pushed off the fence, standing tall, his presence overwhelming in the fading light. "Careful with that name," he said softly. Claire blinked. "Why? It's yours, isn't it?" His eyes darkened. "Names carry weight. And mine has more than you're ready to carry." Silence stretched between them, heavy and electric. She wanted to demand answers, to rip away the layers of mystery. But something in his eyes stopped her. Pain. Old and buried, but alive all the same. He looked at her then, not at her face, not at her body, but at her soul, as though testing if she could stand in the storm he carried. And just like that, he turned away again, boots crunching against the dirt. "Stay out of trouble, Claire," he muttered. She froze. He knew her name. He hadn't asked, hadn't been told. He already knew. And that realization sent a shiver racing down her spine.